A secluded ranch, somewhere deep in the unforgiving heart of the Old West, 1873. The scent of an approaching storm hung heavy in the air, mingling with the sweet, humid smell of a woman's damp skin. He stood before her, a silhouette against the fading light, his voice a low rumble that cut through the silence. Then let's try something harder first. Her breath caught, not from fear, but from a sudden, dizzying pull she couldn't name. In a world defined by dust and duty, some desires burn too fiercely to be contained. She was a spark in his desolate landscape, a flame he fought to extinguish, and yet couldn't resist. What happens when the rules of the land clash with the unspoken rules of the heart? Before we dive into this tale, let us know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching Whispers of the West from today? Now, prepare to step into a story where every glance held a secret, and every touch, a dangerous promise. The vast expanse of the Old West, in the unforgiving year of 1873, was a landscape of harsh beauty and profound solitude. It was into this sprawling, silent world that Maryanne Tornton journeyed, the dust of the trail clinging to her like a second skin, a testament to miles traveled and a past left behind. Her passage across the arid plains had been a relentless test of endurance, the sun beating down mercilessly, the endless horizon a constant reminder of the isolation she was willingly embracing. The ranch, her new destination, emerged from the shimmering heat haze like a mirage, a cluster of weathered timber and sun-baked earth, nestled against a backdrop of rolling hills that seemed to cup secrets within their ancient folds. It was a place where the wind whispered forgotten stories through creaking windmills and the tall, dry grasses, and the horizon stretched endlessly, isolating its inhabitants from the clamor of the world beyond. Maryanne, barely 20, her small canvas bag clutched in her hand, stepped down from the wagon, a figure of delicate defiance. Her brown hair, unbound by the journey, caught the glint of the afternoon sun, a cascade of rich warmth against her simple, travel-stained dress. Though weary, there was an undeniable magnetism to her, an alluring blend of youthful innocence and an almost audacious spirit that made her impossible to overlook. Her presence, a vibrant splash of color against the muted tones of the ranch, seemed to infuse the very air with a newfound vitality. Even as she tried to fade into the background, seeking to observe rather than be observed, her every movement, every subtle curve, drew the eye, a silent symphony of grace and inherent allure in a world accustomed to rough edges. He was waiting for her. Mark Carrington, the owner of this isolated domain, stood on the porch, a silent sentinel carved from the same rugged landscape. Tall and imposing, his frame was etched with the physical demands of the land. His hands calloused from years of toil, his beard close-cropped, framing a jawline set in a perpetual state of unspoken resolve. His eyes, though shadowed by a lifetime of hard-won experience and the profound grief of loss, carried the weight of a deeper sorrow, the lingering ghost of a man marked by tragedy. Years had passed since his wife, Elizabeth, had died in childbirth, a tragedy that had carved a chasm in his soul, leaving him hardened by solitude and bound by a grief he rarely acknowledged. Now, as he surveyed Maryanne, a flicker of something raw and unbidden stirred behind his stoic facade. Her vivacity was a stark contrast to the quiet specter of his past, a jarring note in the melancholic melody of his life. He hired her without much preamble, his words clipped, direct orders about the duties awaiting her within the sprawling ranch house. He felt an uncomfortable shift within him, a tremor of an emotion he had long buried, and he instantly resented it. Maryanne's first days at the ranch were a clumsy dance between inexperience and eager determination. The ranch house, though sparse, was clean, smelling of beeswax and wood smoke, a testament to Mark's own meticulous nature. Her tasks were clear: cooking, washing, organizing the homestead that had, for too long, known only a man's touch. She attacked them with a fervor that often outpaced her skill. One morning, attempting to knead dough for bread, she found herself covered in flour, the sticky mass stubbornly clinging to her hands and apron. Another afternoon, a stack of freshly laundered towels tumbled from her arms as she carried them to the linen press, scattering across the worn wooden floor. Yet, in every fumbled attempt, every misplaced gesture, there was an unintended beauty, a natural elegance that Mark, from the periphery of his work, a fleeting glance from the barn window, a pause in his journey across the yard, observed with a feigned indifference. He watched her from afar, his gaze lingering a fraction too long on the sweep of her arm as she scrubbed a floorboard, the curve of her back as she bent to retrieve a fallen cloth. Each passing day, the carefully constructed walls around his heart seemed to crack, his vulnerability deepening despite his fierce internal resistance. He would remember Elizabeth, her gentle competence, and then find himself comparing it, against his will, to Maryanne's charming clumsiness, a faint, unfamiliar smile tugging at the corner of his lips before he quickly suppressed it. Maryanne, for her part, was acutely aware of the farmer's silent scrutiny. She felt the weight of his lingering gaze like a physical touch, the heavy silences that hung between them during shared, sparse meals like an unspoken truth. There was a raw, undeniable tension in the air whenever they were near, a palpable current that sparked between them, charged with unspoken desire. She recognized the battle raging within him, the struggle to maintain his hardened composure, and the tacit recognition of that struggle only deepened her own burgeoning attraction. It wasn't just his imposing presence or his quiet strength that drew her. It was the glimpse of the hidden man beneath the stern exterior, a man burdened by pain, yet capable of profound emotion. It was a dangerous, exhilarating game, played out in stolen glances and quiet observations, a silent understanding passing between them that transcended words. A strange sense of determination began to bloom within her, a quiet resolve not just to master her domestic duties, but to somehow breach the walls around Mark's heart, to prove herself worthy of his respect, and perhaps something more. The rhythm of their unspoken courtship was abruptly shattered one sweltering afternoon. Joaquim Delgado, the ranch's trusted and seasoned cowboy, a man nearing 50 with a weathered face and hands as gnarled as old oak, was found burning with fever in his small bunkhouse. Joaquim, who had been with Mark since before Elizabeth's time, was not just a hired hand. He was a steadfast pillar of the ranch, the one responsible for the intricate daily ritual of milking the cows, a task demanding both patience and skill. His sudden illness cast a long shadow over the ranch, leaving Mark burdened and stretched thin. The vast operations of the farm, already demanding, now pressed upon him with an almost unbearable weight. The delicate balance they had maintained, the careful dance of unspoken feelings, was about to be irrevocably altered by the harsh realities of the untamed land. Joaquim's unexpected illness created a void, a desperate need for assistance that would force Mark to seek help, pushing Maryanne directly into a role and an encounter that would redefine their intertwined destinies. The coming days would test them both, but more profoundly, they would peel back the layers of pretense, revealing the raw, undeniable truth simmering between them. The relentless sun beat down on Carrington Ranch, a relentless force that baked the earth and parched the throat. With Joaquim Delgado confined to his bunk, feverish and weak, the weight of the ranch's daily rhythm fell squarely on Mark's broad shoulders. Every chore, every decision, every weary mile on horseback felt amplified by the absence of his most trusted hand. The milk cows, a dozen sturdy Holsteins, bawled from the corral with an insistent hunger, their udders heavy, a constant, aching reminder of an unfulfilled task. Mark had spent a sleepless night, the rhythmic cries of the cattle echoing the throbbing in his temples, battling a furious internal war. He was a man accustomed to hard labor, to making difficult choices, but the thought of asking Maryanne to step into Joaquim's place brought a knot to his gut. It was a man's job, dirty and demanding, and the mere thought of her delicate hands grappling with a cow's udder felt wrong. Yet, desperation clawed at him. There was no one else. As the sun began its slow descent, bleeding hues of orange and purple across the vast western sky, Mark finally made his way toward the ranch house. The day's heat lingered, a stifling blanket, yet a faint breeze rustled the cottonwoods by the creek, carrying the scent of dry grass and impending evening. His footsteps were heavy, each one a testament to his exhaustion, but beneath it thrummed a nervous energy, a premonition of the confrontation he was about to initiate. He pushed open the kitchen door, the familiar scent of simmering stew and freshly baked bread washing over him, a stark contrast to the dust and sweat he carried. Maryanne was there, her back to him, near the large cast-iron sink. The late afternoon light, golden and thick, streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and casting long shadows across the wooden floorboards. She was attempting to wipe a smudge from her apron, her movements fluid and unhurried. Unbeknownst to Mark, a small crisis had unfolded moments earlier. A persistent leak in one of the rainwater gutters had necessitated a quick, ill-advised attempt at repair, resulting in an unexpected drenching. Her simple cotton dress, once modest and demure, was now partially soaked, clinging to her form with an almost scandalous transparency. The fabric, darkened by the water, molded itself to the soft curve of her spine, the gentle swell of her hips, and, most arrestingly, the subtle, unmistakable outline of her bust beneath. Mark stopped dead in the doorway. The carefully constructed walls of his self-control, built brick by brick over years of stoic solitude, began to crumble at the sight. His breath hitched in his chest, and his weary mind, already frayed by stress, short-circuited. He had come prepared to deliver an order, to maintain the strict boundary between employer and employee, but the words withered on his tongue. All he saw was Maryanne, illuminated by that soft, damning light, utterly unaware of the raw power of her unintended allure. A quiet battle raged within him, the memory of Elizabeth, a ghost of gentle domesticity, warring with the sudden, undeniable surge of primal hunger that Maryanne's presence evoked. He felt a flush creep up his neck, a heat that had nothing to do with the setting sun. Maryanne, sensing a shift in the air, or perhaps just the sudden cessation of the kitchen's usual background hum, turned slowly. Her eyes, wide and luminous, met his, reflecting the last vestiges of the golden light. For a breathless moment, neither spoke. The air in the kitchen grew heavy, thick with unspoken desire, a palpable current thrumming between them. Mark's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching beneath his beard. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to break the spell. He cleared his throat, the sound rough and artificial in the sudden silence. He needed to assert control to pull himself back from the precipice. "I'm going to need you to take care of the cows for a few days," he managed, his voice firmer than he felt, though a noticeable gravel had entered his tone. Maryanne blinked, her surprise genuine. Her gaze dropped to her wet dress, then back to his intense stare, a faint blush rising to her cheeks. She was still reeling from the unexpected command, her mind struggling to reconcile his words with the sudden, charged atmosphere. "Me?" she stammered, her voice a soft, uncertain whisper. "But I've never milked a cow." The absurdity of the request, juxtaposed with the sudden, undeniable tension, left her disoriented. Her innocent confession hung in the air, a frail shield against the burgeoning storm. The silence that followed was not empty, but heavy, pregnant with unaddressed longing. Mark took a slow, deliberate step towards her, then another. The distance between them evaporated, and with each footfall, the last vestiges of his self-discipline dissolved like smoke. He was unable to resist the powerful current that had been corroding his resolve for weeks, drawing him steadily, inevitably closer. The proximity was intoxicating, a potent cocktail of senses. He could smell the clean, sweet scent of her damp skin, mingled with the faint aroma of the bread she had just baked. He saw the timid shimmer in her wide eyes, mirroring the wild anticipation that now surged through him. The invisible tension, a fragile thread spun between them, tightened, humming with an unbearable intensity. Then he was upon her, leaning in until his lips were almost brushing the delicate curve of her ear. His voice, now a low, guttural murmur, was rough with raw desire, stripped of all pretense. "Then let's try something harder first." There was no room for misunderstanding, no ambiguity in the grave, husky words. The invitation, explicit and loaded, hung heavy in the air, thick with craving. a direct challenge to the years of his own enforced celibacy and her untamed innocence. Maryanne tried to respond, a wordless protest or surrender catching in her throat, but the sound died on her lips as he pulled her against him with an urgent, almost brutal force. His arms cinched around her waist, crushing her wet dress between them, eliminating any remaining space. The kiss that followed was desperate, a furious release of weeks of pent-up yearning, a collision of two lonely souls under the fading light of a western afternoon. Her body, which had been trembling with uncertainty, now surrendered with a hunger that matched his own, a primal recognition of a desire she hadn't known she possessed. Against the sturdy, scarred wooden kitchen table, a steadfast symbol of domesticity that now bore witness to their illicit passion, the accumulated tension of weeks found its shattering, irreversible climax. The world outside, with its endless plains and unforgiving demands, faded into a distant murmur. In that moment, bathed in the fading light, nothing existed but the consuming fire between them. Nothing would ever be the same. The kitchen, no longer just a place of daily chores, now held the charged memory of a boundary shattered. The sturdy oak table, a silent witness, marked the irreversible change between Maryanne and Mark. From that moment, a dangerous, intoxicating secret blossomed, weaving itself into the very fabric of Carrington Ranch. Nothing was the same, though on the surface everything had to appear so. The ranch, with its expansive horizons and scattered outbuildings, became a clandestine stage for their affair. Every shadow, every hushed corner, held the thrilling potential of discovery. Maryanne, fueled by exhilaration and trepidation, quickly learned the subtle dance of secrecy. In the pre-dawn hours, when the world was still cloaked in velvet darkness and only the distant lowing of cattle broke the silence, she would slip from her small room. Her bare feet moved soundlessly, navigating the hushed corridors of the ranch house, each careful step a gamble against detection. Behind the closed, heavy door of Mark's room, a different world unfolded. The austere space, usually steeped in the scent of pipe tobacco, now carried the faint, sweet aroma of Maryanne's skin. In the pale light of dawn, Mark's rugged features would soften, the harsh lines around his eyes easing, replaced by a tenderness Maryanne had never imagined. He was a man transformed, shedding the mantle of the hardened rancher to reveal a vulnerability that captivated her. His calloused hands, so accustomed to gripping reins, now cradled her face with surprising gentleness. The raw hunger that had ignited their first kiss had matured, evolving into a profound connection forged in shared whispers and silent confessions. Alternatively, as the sun dipped below the western hills, painting the sky in fiery strokes of crimson and gold, they would meet in the hushed intimacy of the barn. The air was thick with the scent of hay and warm livestock. Nestled amongst fragrant bales, their voices were kept low, almost inaudible above the gentle rustle of the animals. Here, away from prying eyes, they stole moments of unguarded intimacy. Mark, once a fortress of solitude, now shared fragments of his past, glimpses into the chasm of grief left by Elizabeth. He spoke of his late wife with a wistful ache that resonated with Maryanne. For her, these moments were more than physical passion. They were an affirmation of being truly seen, truly desired, and fiercely protected. She had known innocent affections, but this was different. A love that burned with intense fire and a profound sense of security she hadn't realized she craved. But the vast, open spaces of the West, though seemingly empty, harbored countless watchful eyes. Secrets, like wildfire, rarely stayed contained. The ranch hands, a tight-knit community, were observant, their days marked by routine and a keen awareness of any disruption. Samuel Hargrove, the ranch foreman, was perhaps the most perceptive, and certainly the most malicious. A man in his early 40s with a perpetually pinched expression, Samuel harbored a simmering resentment towards Mark, coveting his position and his land. He had observed Maryanne since her arrival, captivated by her beauty, and the subtle shifts in Mark's demeanor had not escaped his notice. It began with whispers, carried on the wind between the corrals or murmured over cheap whiskey in the dusty saloon. Samuel, a master of insidious manipulation, used his trips to the nearby village to sow his poisonous seeds. He would let slip carefully crafted rumors, stories of the new maid, her charm, and the peculiar attentiveness of the boss. He painted Maryanne as a woman of loose morals, a temptress, and Mark as a man succumbing to base desires, disregarding propriety and the memory of his deceased wife. The villagers, ever hungry for gossip, devoured these tidbits, their collective judgment swift and often unforgiving. The simmering tension on the ranch reached a boiling point with the arrival of Richard Pembroke. Pembroke was everything Mark was not. Impeccably dressed in fine tailored suits, his hands unblemished by labor, his voice smooth and persuasive. A wealthy and influential merchant from the bustling town, he arrived at Carrington Ranch not for business, but for Maryanne. He had seen her on her infrequent trips to the village and had been instantly smitten by her unpretentious beauty and vibrant spirit. Pembroke wasted no time. His overtures were direct, confident, and overwhelming. He sought Maryanne out in the village, offering compliments, small gifts, and finally, a proposition that shook the foundations of her nascent world. Marriage. He spoke of a life beyond the dust and toil of the ranch, a future of comfort and luxury in the town. Fine silks, elegant dinners, security, and social standing. His words painted vivid pictures, a stark contrast to the clandestine embraces and uncertain path she walked with Mark. He was a man of means, capable of offering a future free from hardship and judgment. Maryanne found herself torn, adrift in a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. The promise of security, of a respected place in society, glimmered enticingly before her, a haven from the whispers and the arduous demands of ranch life. Yet, the raw, unbridled passion she shared with Mark, the profound connection that had blossomed in secret, tugged at her heart with an irresistible force. It was a choice between a life of comfortable certainty and a love that was dangerous, defiant, and utterly consuming. The weight of this dilemma pressed upon her, a heavy burden in a world where choices often determined not just happiness, but survival itself. The shadows cast by Samuel's whispers grew longer, and the alluring glow of Pembroke's offer shone brighter, pulling Maryanne in two starkly different directions. The ranch, once a refuge, now felt like a battleground for her heart. The village pulsed with a deceptive gaiety that night, a stark contrast to the quiet torment in Maryanne's heart. Amidst the harvest festival's lights and laughter, she felt every scrutinizing gaze, every hushed whisper. Richard Pembroke, resplendent and confident, remained her insistent shadow, parading her through the throng, his hand a proprietary weight on her arm. He painted a future of security and status, a life free from toil and judgment, so vividly that for a flickering moment, Maryanne almost succumbed. The lure of stability, of an escape from the ranch's relentless scrutiny and dangerous passion, was almost overwhelming. But peace, she knew, was not what her soul truly craved. The ride back to Carrington Ranch was steeped in a heavy silence. Mark rode ahead, his silhouette rigid against the pale moonlight, a furious storm brewing within him. He had learned of Pembroke's public proposal, of the merchant's brazen pursuit, and the air thrummed with his barely contained rage. Maryanne felt the shift in him, the familiar stoicism replaced by a raw, unforgiving tension. They reached the ranch house, its structures dark and silent. Mark strode into the dimly lit parlor, Maryanne hurrying behind. He turned on her, his eyes blazing, reflecting the dying embers in the fireplace. "He asked you to marry him, didn't he?" Mark's voice was a guttural, suppressed roar, an accusation. "What if he did?" Maryanne retorted, her voice rising, fueled by exhaustion and a desperate need for defense. "What right do you have to question me? You offer me nothing but stolen moments and secrets." Tears welled, blurring his angry face. "Secrets?" Mark scoffed, stepping closer, his hands clenching. "And what would you have me do? Shout it from the rooftops? Invite their judgment? Do you think I don't hear their whispers about us?" His voice cracked with a pain that transcended mere anger. The argument exploded, a tempest of accusations and raw confessions. Their voices rose, sharp and cutting, echoing through the silent house. Tears streamed down Maryanne's face as she confronted him with the insecurity of their affair. "I need more, Mark. I can't live like this, always hiding." Mark's anger, fueled by his own fear and deep vulnerability, lashed out. "And what, Pembroke's fine silks will protect you from their scorn. His money erased the truth of what we are." The words, laced with bitterness, hung in the air, but beneath the anger, a profound love, desperate and untamed, pulled them inexorably closer. The shouting dissolved into ragged breaths, their bodies drawn together by an invisible, irresistible force. He seized her, his grip almost bruising, and she met his fury with a matching intensity. The kiss was not gentle, but a wild, savage act of possession and surrender, blending rage and longing into an unbearable ecstasy. They collapsed, a raw collision of souls, sealing the undeniable truth of their feelings. As their passion subsided, leaving them breathless and intertwined, Maryanne lay against his chest. In the quiet aftermath, a profound understanding dawned upon her. His anger, his fear, it stemmed from an older wound. She felt the rigid tension in his body, the tremor in his hands, and saw past the anger to the profound sorrow that always shadowed his eyes. He loved her fiercely, but he was trapped, a prisoner of a past tragedy. "Elizabeth," she whispered, the name a soft invocation. Mark flinched, tensing. "She died during childbirth. Both gone. And I couldn't save them." His voice was raw with years of unspoken guilt. "I can't go through that again, Maryanne. Loving someone again. It's the hardest work there is." His words, echoing his earlier declaration, now held a devastating new meaning. Maryanne understood. The weight of his grief, the suffocating fear of loving and losing again. Pembroke's offer, once tempting, now felt hollow, an empty promise compared to the raw, real love she shared with Mark. The first rays of dawn began to paint the eastern sky. Maryanne stirred, her decision made with quiet, unshakable certainty. She rose, leaving Mark lost in his revelation, and walked to her room. Her small canvas bag, packed for departure, sat by her bed. She looked at it for a long moment, then pushed it aside, a silent rejection of the easy path. She walked out of the house, the cool morning air a balm on her face, her steps firm, purposeful, leading her to the corrals. The milking pail and stool waited. Maryanne picked up the pail, its metal cold. She approached one of the large Holsteins, taking a deep breath, positioning herself. Her fingers, clumsy at first, found a rhythm. The first squirts of warm, frothy milk hit the pail with a soft ping, a sound of accomplishment, of belonging. For the first time, Maryanne Tornton milked a cow, alone, under the watchful eye of the nascent day. It was an act more profound than any grand declaration, a silent testament to her readiness for this world, for this man. Mark found her there, the sun fully risen behind her, painting her silhouette in gold. She was still bent over the cow, hands steady, the pail half full. He stood silently, observing her, his face a complex mosaic of relief, awe, and a profound, wordless love. No grand speeches were needed, no promises uttered. Only the quiet, unwavering recognition in his eyes, mirrored in hers, that the hardest work was not the physical labor, nor the milking, nor the village's prejudice. The hardest work, the truest challenge, was simply to love. To love despite the crushing weight of fear, despite the ghosts of the past, and despite the lingering, aching pain. In that shared, silent understanding, their new life on the ranch began. In the stark light of a new dawn, where dust and promise mingled, Maryanne Tornton made her ultimate choice. She turned away from the gilded cage of comfortable certainty, from the eloquent promises of a life unburdened by hardship, choosing instead the wild, untamed heart of the West and the scarred, resolute soul of Mark Carrington. For in his whispered confession of past loss, she found the profound truth of his love, a love born of tragedy and bravely reborn through courage. The rhythmic pull of a cow's udder, once a daunting, unfamiliar chore, became her silent vow, a tangible commitment etched into the very soil of the ranch as Mark watched. In that shared, silent understanding, both knew that the hardest work was not physical labor, nor the scorn of a judgmental world, but the brave, terrifying act of loving beyond fear, past trauma, and lingering pain. Their story, unfolding beneath the vast, indifferent sky, reminds us that true allegiance is not always found in ease, but in the tempest of shared vulnerabilities, in the deliberate choice to embrace the difficult truth of one's heart. It is a testament to the quiet strength found in courage, and the fierce beauty of choosing an authentic path, however arduous. Maryanne chose the storm over tranquility, a love forged in defiance over a life of quiet luxury. What path would you have chosen in her place? And what deep-seated fears might have guided your decision? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. If this tale of enduring love and the untamed West stirred something within you, make sure to explore more stories where fate and passion collide. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Whispers of the West for more journeys into the heart of forgotten legends and untold passions.